Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maudsley. I work as the director of the TVR Institute at Northwest Indian College. And I want to introduce Nancy Riddick, who is part of the TVR Institute faculty for 3 years now. Yep. And she recently earned her PhD in rehabilitation counseling just a couple months, 6 weeks ago, something like that. So she's a new doctor, which embarrasses her. Anyway, so Nancy's going to go through the slides with you, and also I will monitor the chat. And Jamie, just if you see something I don't mention, maybe you could speak up if I miss something. Thank you very much. And I will give it over to Nancy. Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you, and welcome again to everyone. Thanks for the introduction and I'll get used to it one day, but I'm Nancy. All right, so what we are, okay, wait a minute, okay, the screen keeps moving. Okay, you can go ahead to next slide if you need to. We want to give thanks to the following contributors for this material. Of course, Laura herself, Keith Tompkins from Oklahoma State VR, he's a counselor and tribal liaison. And also he was a former TVR Institute professor. Susan Kincaid, thank you very much, from the TVR Institute curriculum developer. We appreciate everyone and all the materials that we received and had assistance with. Next slide. So today, before I start my presentation, to those who need my appearance, I'm going to give you a description of myself first. I am a woman of color. I am wearing a blue top and have my hair pulled back into a pony with a multicolored headband on. And right now I have my hands folded, but I'll continue on because I talk with my hands and I'm trying to control that. But it comes natural, so I'm sorry, I had to talk with my hands. I do talk a little fast at times, especially when I get passionate and into something. Just say, hold Nancy, slow down, okay? And I will do that. I don't get offended by that, but I do get kind of passionate about what I'm talking about or what I'm trying to talk about. And good morning again to everyone, and good afternoon to those who are on my time zone and those who are behind me. Good morning. So today our learning outcomes are to define and differentiate personal values and our professional ethics. We're also going to identify the 6 principles of ethical behavior, and we all should know these principles and the steps in the ethical decision making process. And last but not least, we're going to describe the ethical implications, or you should be able to describe the implications of dual relationships, confidentiality. And one of the biggest obstacles a lot of us have issue with is accepting gifts from participants. And so we're going to talk about that a little also today. Next slide, please. So this is our outline for today. And I'll try to stay in sync as much as I can. I will go off sometimes and go to another whatever, but don't worry, I'll pull it back in. So the outline for today is to talk about personal values and ethics, or discuss. We're going to also look at tribal codes of ethics and conduct, professional ethics, principles of ethical behavior, again, decision making, ethical decision making, and then the considerations for tribal communities. Next, please. So let's look at some definitions of what we're going to be speaking of today, which is ethics, of course. So we look at it and we first have to understand it and know what are values. So we all have values, and we're going to also discuss what morals are. We all should have morals. Values, number one, are important. Those things that are important to a person's life, and how they engage in society and inside the community, outside the community, in their home. Those are values. And also they're long-term and they should be consistent. Values often reflect a person's priorities and the characteristics, and of course, their behaviors. So what are ethics then? As we see here, ethics or what some like to call moral philosophy, okay, addresses what is morally good and bad. So we have, I like to say ethics is either on this side good, on this side bad, on this side bad, on this side good. So it's between the two. So we're thinking, what is that? What is an ethical dilemma? And we're going to talk about that as well too. Or is it? And how we decide that is if it's good or if it's bad. So just think of those two things: morally good or bad. Ethics can also be applied to a system of theory of the moral values or principles. So what are beliefs? We all have beliefs, right? And I like engagement, so I'm going to probably asking you all a lot of questions as I go through this. So I love engagement, so feel free to engage with me, okay? Beliefs are the convictions that are generally held to be true, often without actual proof or evidence. We believe in something, okay, or believe in something. They are formed through experiences within the family of origin, culture, education, spirituality, also religion, and of course our work, what we believe in. And last but not least, again, our morals are a person's standards of belief and behavior. So you see how these intertwine with each other, all four: values, ethics, beliefs, and morals. They kind of intermingle, as I like to say. So concerning what is not acceptable to do or what is acceptable to do, those are our morals. Okay, next slide, please. Everybody with me so far? Just give me a thumbs up or a head shake. Thumbs up, something. I don't see anything. Okay, I see 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. Okay, thank you. Making sure we're on the same page. So ethics and ethical codes are built on a foundation. Again, we said this already. They're built on personal and organizational values. So what is our personal and what is our organization? And sometimes these two go hand in hand, well, most times they should go hand in hand. If we're that professional person, how we look at our values and look at our organization's values. Do they kind of match up? Similarities there, okay? When a person or organization identifies with their own personal values, they are better able to navigate ethical situations, and then they are authentically living. A person who knows their personal values it's very clear to them about right or wrong. The same can be said for an organization that has identified their values also. The sense of right or wrong is what ethics, ethical codes, codes of conduct, what all these things are based on. Next slide, please. So let's look at personal ethics versus professional ethics. So look at, okay, so just get into your head right now. Look at yourself. What are your personal ethics? These are things that comes within yourself, okay? Professional ethics are external. So personal are within, professional are external. We gather these from our work. We gather these from our communities. We gather these from our churches, wherever we are. We gather these professional ethics. Or even one other thing, professional organizations that we belong with, KNAR, for instance. What are their ethical codes of ethics? The consequence of violating personal ethics are personal in nature and are determined by the person, by yourself. Violating professional ethics are, well, we know that comes from a group of people that can result in a fine, could result in a penalty, or even expulsion from that group. And we have something in bold here that is very important, that the tribe, local, state, and federal laws supersede any codes of ethics and personal values, grant assurances, and TVR project policies. So look at your own tribal codes of ethics, local, state, and federal laws supersede codes of ethics and personal values. Okay, and we're going to talk about some more as well. Go on to the next slide, please. So we have a few codes of ethics or codes of conduct listed here. And if you belong to either of these tribes, yes, we pulled up some and posted it here for you to take a look at. We can do that if we have some time today, but if we need to look at those, if you've never seen a code of ethics, or if you need to develop a code of ethics, here are some samples that you can go by, okay? You can look at these things and say, oh, yeah, we don't have one. Or even if you can't find yours and you know it's there somewhere, maybe, just maybe you just need to start all over again because it's evidently lost and no one can find it. Or you may need to revamp your code of ethics, okay? Or code of conduct, code of ethics. I'm going to be going hand in hand with those two. Then you look at these and you say, okay, well, you know what? We need to review and we need to renew our code of ethics. Take a look at it. For some people, their personal values and ethics strongly reflect those codes. Whoops, excuse me. Get full screen back. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Those codes, sorry, I got mixed up. I had a chat come through and I saw it, but for some people, their personal values and ethics strongly reflect those of their tribe or community. And there was a question in the chat box. Can someone read that because I can't actually see it? Can we go to the next slide also? So let's look at Native American Code of Ethics and some highlights. Respect all things that are placed upon the earth, whether they are people or plants. All persons make mistakes and all mistakes can be forgiven, excuse me. Bad thoughts cause illness of the mind, body, and spirit. So let's practice optimism. So other principles in the Code of Ethics can be found at this link we have here on appleseeds.org, Native American Ethics, HTM. And this is from the Red Road to Wellbriety in the Native American Way. So you have a resource that you can kind of view here. Next slide, please. Commitment to cultural diversity. Let's look at that. But before we go on, do I need to answer anyone's questions before I go on, those monitors who are here with me?
I haven't seen any questions yet.
Okay, thank you. Commitment to cultural diversity. Let's look at this for a second here. Another aspect of providing TVR services ethically is cultural awareness. This is very important for TVRs to be aware that all participants exist in a way, in a variety or way of contexts that influence their behaviors in different ways. Let's read that one again. All participants exist in a variety of contexts, not contents, but contexts that influence their behaviors in different ways. The TVR field, society at large, and the needs of individuals continuously change and evolve. We know that from how our agencies are looking in the TVR staffing, what the turnover is, we look at that. And these things are largely, they change, and we need to help those that are coming in or those that are leaving out to understand what their responsibilities and roles are as far as ethics and cultural diversity. Respectful and timely communication is important when engaging with participants and any other interested party that's out here. Respect is the #1 thing that I absolutely live by, respect. And of course, communication. A lot of people don't like to communicate, but if we're engaging with participants in our communities, then we need to make sure that we have the cultural diversity that we need, okay, or should have in a code of ethics or a code of conduct that we should follow culturally. Next question, next slide, please. Continue with another aspect, provide. Can you go back one slide, please? Make sure I got everything on that one. Okay, thank you. Go to the next one. So let's look at self-determination. So when we look at the word self-determination, we look at it through informed consent and including the participants' rights to listing, as we go along with listing their, identifying their employment goals. So they should and can identify their employment goal. If not, what do? We step in and we assist. We don't tell them, we kind of assist by listening to them and listening to what their employment goal is, what they did in the past, what their employment was in the past, what they would like to do. So this kind of helps them to know that they're responsible for what their services will look like. Okay, we guide them, we counsel them, we guide them. So it helps also to remove barriers and to achieve their employment goal. So if they can identify their employment goal, and we with our assistance, then we can help them to achieve that employment goal. Research their diagnosis and treatment. Yeah, a lot of us are new to these positions that we're in. A lot of us have been here for a day, rather than a day. But we still research their diagnosis and treatment, because what is the one thing that we do know, and that is everybody's different. We may have the same diagnoses, similar treatment, but does that mean that Nancy's going to get the same thing you receive because we have the same diagnoses? No, it's on each individual, and we must know that we should treat that with respect and research their diagnosis, their impediments, and how they are treated. And I'll go on. Make mistakes and change their minds. So yes, they have a right to make mistakes. They have a right to change their mind. It's their life. We still guide and protect them. We still guide and direct them. We still guide and counsel them. Decide when and how long they will utilize TVR services and who their providers will be. Give them that. It's their rights, it's their responsibility. So they're taking their responsibility into their own hand, and they're saying, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to work my 90 days and I'm going to be out of your hair. I don't want to see you anymore. Or I need longer help. I need a longer length of time. So help them to decide. And then if they want to, by their own consent, signature, then you involve their family and their loved ones in their TVR cases. Now, I know this is probably redundant to a lot of us, but with ethics, it's so good to hear it again. Repetition is not a problem, or should not be a problem. Let's go on then. So here are some links for professional ethical standards for counselors. And let us bring, if we can, I don't know how many of you have seen these, maybe you have seen them, the ethical standards for human health service professionals, as well as the ACA, Code of Ethics, American Counseling Association. So just in case, are we able to click and follow these things? Because we have time, I know we do. So let us just click on either one of them. If we can. And let's see what it brings up for ethical standards of human service. And she'll have to share it again. And so, and the reason I wanted to click on either way, because I want you all to have that visual. Maybe you've never seen this before. Maybe you have seen it before. Maybe you need to revisit this. This is ethical standards for human service professionals. That's who we are. National Organization of Humans, it was adopted in 2015. So this is who we are. We're the human service professionals. Okay, our profession is directly involving humans. And so it would behoove all of us to take the time to go through this link, this information, and see how we can better ourselves. And I put us in there because betterment is for everyone. Become aware and then go from there. Okay. You can go back to the slides. Thank you. Just wanted you all to see this. And thank you very much to I appreciate that. All right, you can go into the next slide. Professions that operate using the code of ethics. And so here we are with the list of the professions, so tribal officials, elected and appointed, counselors and social workers, educators, doctors, attorneys and judges, federal employees. All these professions have to operate, need to operate on a code of ethics. Again, if you're not sure where your tribal official code of ethics, code of conduct is, then today is the day to, after this webinar, is to go and search for that with the help from your other partners. I'm not gonna say a crime, partners in your office, in your facility. Even, and if you, again, if you do not have one, today is the day to start one, to start using that tribal codes. I mean, to implement or either develop a tribal code, develop and implement it, okay? Getting all twisted here, I do apologize. Okay, you can go to the next slide. So we look now at the values that are involved with the code of ethics and conduct. So if we look at the ACA code of conducts and the codes of professional ethics for certified rehab counselors, CRCC, counselors, they include respecting human rights and dignity. And as you all know, that's my #1 value, goal, whatever. It's just in my heart, in my soul, it's amongst me, okay? It's in my DNA, I guess I could say. But respect is key one. And why I say that, because if you respect people or respect yourself even, let's go back to yourself. If you respect yourself, you're a human and you want dignity and you have rights. So therefore, if you're respecting yourself and you're doing all this for you, then you should exuberate that into your community, into your participants, into your family members, everyone. Now, everyone's not going to agree with you, but that's okay. As long as you're holding those standards high, those codes of ethics high, those values and morals high, professionalism, and personal, then you will be okay. And you just keep, every time you turn around, you keep doing these, thinking about them, reading over them, respecting, and holding people accountable for their own values and morals. Enhancing human development throughout the lifespan, okay, includes that. Honoring diversity and embracing a multicultural approach in support of worth, dignity, potential, and the uniqueness of people within their social and cultural context. This is where a lot of individuals get lost in honoring diversity and embracing the multicultural approach to support people. And because evidently they missed out on the respect issue, the respect category, they missed out on that. They don't believe humans have rights, depending on who that human person is, but we all have rights, we all have responsibilities. And doing that, again, respecting, enhancing, and honoring. It doesn't have to be in no, I can't even talk, stop it, Nancy. It doesn't have to be in that time frame, or that listing, but respect, I believe that's how it should be first, is respect. Promoting empowerment, and it's not all about me, but it is about me, because I'm trying to help others to see, to help you all and myself to see where we should be, or where, if we're not, you know what, let's get there. Let's just go ahead and make it a point to get there. Promoting empowerment through self-advocating and self-determining. That is a big one as well, because, you know, we have all these cases that we are involved in, or our staff is involved in, and we got to get it done. Oh, we got to get it done today, and it's got to be done today. And we start scribbling, start writing, and start doing these things right here. But you're not teaching that person about themselves and to self-advocate, or even to determine what they want. So we must make sure that we put the time for the whole person, the entire being, and empower them, help them, okay? Encourage them, empower them. And then advocating for the fair and adequate provision of services. Again, based on that participant's needs, as we all know that. So these values that we have listed here provide the conceptual basis for the code of ethics for counselors and behavioral health professionals. And so with that, next slide, we look at the 6 principles. So the 6 principles of ethical behavior. We look at these principles and we're like, well, what does that mean? What is autonomy? Look at these things and we're supposed to follow these, but I don't know what they mean. But they're here, but I kind of know what some of these things mean. No, you should know what in each category, each heading: autonomy, beneficence, fidelity, justice, non-maleficence, and veracity. These go hand in hand with each other. They're connected. So if you don't know what these things mean, please become aware of what they are and how they're used interchangeably with each other, connecting with each other, how they're used. Because next slide, I believe we can get some. So I'm sorry, go back to the slide. I don't want this one yet. So if we look at veracity, someone tell me what veracity is. I told you I was going to involve everybody. So tell me what the word veracity is. To be honest. Anyone else? Same? No? Yes? Truth. Yeah. Anything honest? Yeah. Truth, honesty? Yes. Thank you. So if we don't know these, accurate and factual. Oh, yeah. Accurate, yes. So again, please look up these things. If you don't know them, find out what their meaning is. Go to your right there at your Code of Ethics, CRCC, and your ACA. The codes are there and it's explained step by step. It's defined, or explained, same thing. What that definition of beneficence means, what is fidelity and justice. What are they talking about? Why are we having to follow these? Find out why you have to follow them, okay? Because the intent for this is to be caring and respectful for everyone. Okay, next slide, please. So let's look at the decision-making model that we have here. These are steps that will help determine the decisions when you're confronted with an ethical dilemma. When I was teaching this past quarter, we went over some case situations and the dilemmas that we can face. And although we may not have agreed on how to handle the cases, we became aware of how we would handle the cases. So what you want to do, you're going to review the case situation. You're going to identify the ethical issue and determine at least 2 courses of action. Now, you can either do this by yourself, or if you need to involve someone else within your office, your colleagues or whomever, just to have them bounce off of what the issue is, and you have another ear that understands that we all are supposed to be ethical people, then if you get confused and you don't, then you find someone who can help you with this. Don't try to do everything on your own. I know it's your case, it's whatever the ethical dilemma is. And sometimes the ethical dilemmas could be embarrassing, but we're here to learn. We're here to help each other. So don't let it be so embarrassing that you don't reach out for help. After that, you're going to determine the factual-based reasons for supporting each course of action. Identify the ethical principles that is being targeted. I'm using the word targeted. That supports, that support each reason. So look at the ethical principles. It may be what? Autonomy. It may be justice. Whatever that identifying principle is, then you're going to need to find out how to support. List factual-based reasons for not supporting. Okay, and you got to have some harsh course for, especially in ethical dilemmas, for why you're not supporting this course of action, including possible effects on individuals or groups. And this gets kind of testy when we're trying to come up with some ethical ways to assist, and if it or to support. And if it is this not deemed to be supportive, what are we doing then? What do we do? What steps do we take? And this is step forward. Formulate a justification for the superiority of the best course and action that includes the reasons and principles in number 2 and number 3, determining the factual base and list factual based reasons. Okay, so this is one ethical decision making model. There's more out here. There's more out here, but this seems to cover everything that we cover. Now they're out there, there's more, they're lengthier, that you got to do this and that, the third, but whatever fits you. But this decision making model is deemed to be one that was chosen. Okay, one that is chosen because it's easy steps. Potential ethical issues in TVR. Okay, so let's look at these issues. Tribal leaders or relatives of tribal leaders as applicants or participants, that could be an obstacle, or that will be an obstacle, okay? If you have tribal leaders or relatives of tribal leaders as your applicant and your participant. Growing up or related to applicants or participants. We know in our communities, we're related, and we have to be careful of how we handle that. And how does your office, how does your community handle that if you have an applicant that is related to you or growing up with you? Ensuring confidentiality of data and participant information. That's our number one thing that we all should do. Confidentiality is number key. We do know that. But sometimes that confidentiality can be breached. And what do we do? How do we handle that? We go back to the steps that we talked about previous slide, and we try to come up with that decision making and what we're going to do. Staffing issues made by tribal leaders. Because I'm your family, I need to have this job. Because I'm your sister, I need to work where you're working. How does that work for you all? What do you do in those cases? Professional competence is needed here. Experience is needed here on how to deal with, I guess I could say, with lack of a better word, your staffing issue, and you need to fill that void. Okay, who do you talk to? Who do you talk with about this? That you need to find that out. And what is the code of conduct or code of ethics in your tribal community for TVR? You got to figure these things out. Counselors or other TVR staff related to service providers. Is that an ethical dilemma with anyone? Will that come up? Yeah, it might come up. What do you do with that? All of these bullets, you need to figure out a step. You need to have steps involved in what you can do. And you go back to your code of conduct, you go back to your ethical codes, and you figure out what you need to do. If you have to call a meeting and tribal elders get involved and community elders get involved, whomever, the staff, then you have to have that meeting, because sometimes this does happen, more so than not. And here's another one, dual relationship, such as a TVR staff member, the only counselor or staff member involved, and you've got family that needs services. What do you do? What are you going to do? What's on board, meaning what's in paper and pen that you should be doing? What's on those codes that you should be doing, or ethical codes and conduct that you should be doing? Who have you spoken with about this matter? Is there anyone that you can speak with about this matter? Remember, you're the only staff member. Okay. Having a personal or romantic relationship with a participant. That's a biggie. I talked about this in class as well. I talked about a lot of things in class, but I talked about this in class as well. And we had some good conversation about the length of time it should be, if we should or we should not, what's the ethical way to do this? Is there a dilemma happening here? Of course, okay. So know what your tribal code of ethics is with romantic relationships with a participant. I could tell you my opinion, but I'm going to leave that to myself because it gets to be involved with a lot of stuff, okay? And we don't have time to, we could go with this last bullet forever and a day about participant romantic relationships. We could go on and on and on with it. I can give you case scenarios for real, real scenarios that happened and what the consequences was. I won't, Jamie, I won't. Don't do it, she says. No one should be doing it. Okay, Jamie, thank you very much. But yes, no, it is all against ethical codes of conduct. Anyway, it's just don't do it. And if there is, and you know that that's happening, what are you going to do? How can you fix that? Is being aware of it okay? And that's all we are aware of it, and that's it. Or do we need to take further steps? That's between you and your tribal, your tribal agency, your tribal leaders, and your staffing, TVR staff, or TVR administrator, whomever. That needs to be a conversation. And if it's not in your code of conducts and your tribal TVR code of conducts, your tribal code of conducts, then are you going to put it there? Does it need to be there? Do we need to have conversation with this? Okay, and go from there. Excuse me. Let's look at this decision-making case scenario. See, I talk so much, I get dry. Let's look at this decision-making case scenario. I'm going to read it to you. You think about it. A tribal leader demands that in order to approve the purchase of a participant service, the TVR counselor must give them access to information about the participant's disability and their economic status. I need to read that again. You guys can read, I'll go on. So here's the question. What decision supports or opposes the tribal leader's request? Someone just give it to us. What ethical principles would apply and how would you justify the decision?
It's a HIPAA violation. That's there, you know, that individual has the choice to say yes or no. I mean, you could potentially ask them, but no, that's nowhere. Even the funding comes from the RSA. So it's not like it's that tribe's money. I'm not trying to like step on toes or get myself in trouble by saying that, you know, but no, like confidentiality, and that's a HIPAA violation.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about getting in trouble. We're all in this, we're here. You say what you need to say. It's confidential. It's all what we need to say. So thank you for that, Heather. I appreciate that. Confidential, yes, confidentiality was out the window, right? It's gone. It's gone. So how would you justify that decision then? Anyone other than Heather? Or Heather, if you want to answer, you can answer, but just hold on. No? Heather? They're not talking. They don't talk to me. All right. So how would you
provide? I would provide probably, this is Rita with Nebraska VR in Grand Island.
Hi, Rita.
Hi. Probably, you know, policy procedures, you know, things like that, documentation, state, you know, in writing that this isn't a personal thing. It's just, you know, basically I'm following our policies.
Yes.
And
yes. Yes.
And And in respect, if they're asking for medical information or disability disclosure, that is not something that we are allowed to do. Here again, you mentioned HIPAA. So giving just them a copy maybe of that would go to the above and beyond.
Yeah.
type.
So
I
yeah,
would tell them that there's no RIA in place for us to release any information to them, meaning that the participant does not consent to any information shared with them.
So yeah, all of these things that you guys have stated is true. It's true. It all comes down to confidentiality, autonomy, code of conduct, all of that. You need to make sure that these things can be justified. And then, you know what, the person may need education on that. They may not be aware of that. We got to look at both sides of it. And then, of course, oh, Nancy, she knows or he knows, but do you really think they know? You think they know, but do they really know? So then you throw that code of conduct back in their faces and say, this is why I cannot do this. Let them see it in writing if you have to.
Yeah, and I would also reach out to my program manager to like kind of help advocate through that situation, because sometimes people do try to come from other departments and be like, hey, da 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 da, and I'm like, I can't. And sometimes I need that extra strength to help me get like
that's fine.
Situations like that.
That is fine, because that's what we're there for, to give each other, empower each other, you know, and then and to be there for each other. Now, if we're wrong, we're wrong, and then we have to, you know.
This is Lee with
Hi, Lee.
AIVRTTAC. Another thing to keep in mind is that the 371 regulations that talks about the special application requirements that each tribal grantee needs to follow regarding determining eligibility for any applicant and working with the eligible consumer, the services to be provided, the cost and everything that's described in the IPE is the responsibility of the TVR unit and should not involve anyone outside the tribal TVR entity.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Nancy, there's a comment from Christina. The individual should be part of the conversation. It shows autonomy or facilitates autonomy of the individual to be involved in sharing their own personal information.
Yes. Yes.
And then Bettina had a question. What if they deny the purchase? Can RSA step in?
Can RSA step in if the purchase is denied? Anybody know that answer?
It wouldn't go that far, just like I made reference to the special application requirements. The TVR is the designated TVR agency to determine, and as described in the IPE, the cost for all consumer services. And this is after the applicant's determination for eligibility has been determined, and no outside entity would be involved in any of the VR process.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. Thank you again, Mr. Lee. All right, so we have a clear understanding, hopefully. If not, you have to come. We have to come back to that information. We have to come back and discuss it again. This is the ongoing. This will be ongoing, because this case scenario is a great case scenario to look at about your tribal leaders, your TVR staff, who's doing what, who's where they're who's where they're supposed to be, who is involved and not supposed to be involved or shouldn't be involved, unless the participants give that consent. Then
excuse me, another thing to remember is that as part of the tribal VR grant proposal, within that document, each grantee should have prepared assurance statements as to how they will address the special application requirements. And what I'm referring to is part of that section. So the tribe as the grantee should have been fully aware as to what the assurances would be met by a tribal grantee. So this should be a source of documentation and reference. Should anyone outside the tribal VR unit question or challenge the decisions that is made by the TVR director or the VR counselor.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much again for all this valuable information, and we all can learn and learn from it and take it and educate others with it too, because we have to go back to look at the tribal, as Mr. Lee said, the TVR information, the grant information, and all that, how it's to be disseminated. Thank you very much. All right. Any other statement? If not, we're going to go on. How's my time looking? Okay, I'm good. Okay, so special topics for dual relationships. Here we go with this dual relationship. This is a dual relationship exists when the TVR counselor and the participant receiving services have more than one relationship. Now we're talking about dual relationships involved with the TVR counselor and the participant. An example would be when an applicant and the TVR counselor have a lifelong friendship. Okay, that's what a relationship, a dual relationship is or exists when it exists. When possible, ask to have the case reassigned to another member of the TVR staff. Moving the case can help the counselor avoid situations where they may struggle to be professional and objective. When the dual relationship cannot be avoided, talk to the participant about the roles of the counselor and the participant during the TVR process. And documentation, everybody who knows me know documentation is my #1 word of their respect. Document this conversation in your personnel confidential file. Yeah, in your personal confidential file. Documentation should be for in anything I do, I document. I have to. This is the way I am, and that we should document any conversation that we have as following dual relationships, personal relationships. It should be documented. Okay. I can't speak of this enough. But just remember. Okay. Confidentiality is both. Let's go back to, can you go back 1 second to that previous conversation? With dual relationships, how do you all handle when, not that cannot be avoided, but how do you handle that can be avoided when you're working and you have to probably assign a case to another, and there's no other member of staff to transfer it to? What do you do? How do you handle that situation? That may be something you need to talk with TVR employee and TVR staff, others, well, administration, because you're the only counselor there because you can't transfer it, or you may maybe want to get connected with an outside agency like DVR to do this case together, because they, you may have to, the person's still in the registered area, yes, but if you're the only person and this person is related to you or whatever, what do you do? And I know we talked about relationships before, but this is an ongoing conversation. This should be an ongoing conversation. All these scenarios, everything that we face with dual relationships and personal relationships should be top of the board, because we need to know what we should and should not do. And by doing that, we're going to go back to the rules and regs, the confidential statements, the dual relationships, all the things that we've talked about already. We should be really concentrating on what if you don't have only yourself? What if it was only you in there? or not another, but the other was not a staff person, is not a counselor. What do? These things we have to have.
For me, there's just me and the VR with the Navajo Nation Tuba City office.
Mhm.
And if I was to come across this, which I haven't yet, I would just go, I mean, if they really, I would ask them if they want their case to be transferred to someone else, like with another agency. Or if they don't, if they refuse to do that, I would go tell them that everything is going to be on a professional basis, and then go over it. And I'm not going to use that, using any personal relationship to for their cases. Everything, all the decisions and everything is going to be at a professional level.
Exactly, and continuously say that. Sorry.
Yeah, and I would remind them at every meeting that, you know, we're here. We're here from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, as a VR staff, and then as her being a participant. And then if we should ever come across at home her case or anything else pertaining to her case, will that be discussed?
Staying professional, even asking, maybe not a counselor because you only want yourself, asking another staff person to come in as your buffer, I guess to say, or your witness, or your, well, witness may not be the word, but still your witness, to make sure that things are going, and that person can interject something as well if they need to, as long as you've given consent by your participant. And then, of course, I'm not saying they have to give consent, but you need to make sure that you have that buffer, that person that can be there with you.
As a witness,
assist.
yeah. I will also ask, like, what's her case that has moved on to the VRC the vocational rehab. I will excuse myself every time that person came in.
Okay. Thank you.
Nancy,
Yes.
there's a few comments and questions in the chat.
Okay.
So one point that Keith brings up is sometimes people don't want to be served by the state. So kind of what Letty is talking about, it might be the avenue that someone would have to take.
Yeah.
Anita said that another example, you know, aside from an established relationship, but would be if maybe it's a participant that you had a negative experience with in the past, or in another program when you worked somewhere else or something like that, or even personally, that could be an issue. Let's see, Lori said, if you can't transfer, I would suggest you mention explaining the boundaries to the client. I would also declare the conflict with the supervisor and ask for ongoing case review to ensure services are provided as ethically as possible. Anita said you could possibly ask your director to sit in on any meeting you have with the individual, be as professional as possible. That could be like the witness that you were talking about. Yes. Keith said invite someone else to sit in. And then Lee gave the citation for the AIVRS special application requirements that the tribes have to agree to when you turn in the grant proposal. Heather said that she asked if the program manager might be able to step into that counseling role. Sometimes, I mean, I did that when I was a manager. I would take cases for my staff if there were these issues. But sometimes I think the program manager is the counselor if it's, you know, there's limited staff.
Yes.
And then Anita said, documentation will also help to make sure that everything is recorded to ensure that the new professional connection with the individual is in the best interest of the individual and the counselor.
Exactly.
Yeah, thanks everyone for all your comments.
Thank you.
Good Nancy?
One second.
Okay.
Two people talking. Go ahead, lady.
Okay, I would have to get a statement too. Either way, if they're uncomfortable about the, you know, with them, me being their case manager, and if they prefer to have their case to be transferred to another agency, or if they want to me continue being their case manager, I would get all that in writing and a statement saying that they feel comfortable for me being as although their relation, this is how our relationship will apply. And I will still be using the ethical, professional, doing everything according to the guidelines of the policy and procedures.
Okay, thank you, Letty. Go ahead, Albert.
Good afternoon. This is Albert Calamity with Vocational Rehab from Navajo. For me, I would lay all that at the initial contact during the referral and application and intake process. Go through all the responsibilities of the program and also the responsibility of the individual. And that's where during our class, we're talking about establishing a rapport with the individual and let them know this is a professional relationship when they sign up for the program. So if you lay all that out from the beginning and things start going forward, and in our program, as I've mentioned before, we have a document that every consumer or every participant signs. It's a rights and responsibility document that we have them sign, and we give them a copy. So when things arise, we have them refer back to those documents and say, you agreed to this, and this is what we were talking about, and make sure that the individual understands every part of that document before they sign it. So that's how I would take care of it.
Great, great. Thank you, thank you. Thank you everyone for your feedback and questions. Great conversation. All right. So continuously keep those dual relationships in mind and what you would do and how you would staff number one, and then how you would communicate number two, communicate number one, staff it, and go forward. And the scenarios that we've talked about, you may face them one day. So, and then you have a room full of people here today, or a Zoom full of people here today that you can converse with again if you need to. Let's continue. So special topics, again, confidentiality is both an ethical element and a legal right. I like that. Explain the TVR's project confidentiality. I think we've established that. Albert said it very well, thank you. This includes the use of social media. Oh my goodness, social media. That's another conversation within itself. For communication and requirements for mandatory reporting. TVR projects should ensure that fax machines, computers, printers, copiers, mailboxes are solely for project use only, not personal. Our participants' data should be locked in a secure cabinet or password protected if stored electronically. Yep. How many of you have heard me with that on that bandwagon with that? It is important to ensure the information is exchanged between the counselor and the participant in a shared confidential space. That means your office, the library you're going to meet this person in, or their own home even. If you're meeting them at their home, make sure that it is confidential where you're meeting them, wherever it is.
Nancy, there's a comment from Jim Allen about the dual relationships. Our counselor couldn't take on a client because he was a pseudo father to her, so he was referred to me. However, the prospective client and myself had a history of conflict in our younger years. However, as program manager, I had to become neutral and work with the client. It all worked out well.
Yes, good
job, Jim.
Good to hear that. Good to hear that. He took it to the professional side. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So again, it is important to ensure that information exchange between the counselor and the participant is shared in a confidential space. Again, worth repeating. Go to the next slide, please. Okay, here's one that we really discuss and that needs to be discussed all the time. Yes, sometimes a participant wants to bring you a gift of appreciation, a gift for your birthday, a gift for whatever is going on. And this participant doesn't know our rules and regs because we haven't told them that we cannot accept a gift from the beginning because it wasn't deemed necessary to even mention that, right? However, special consideration for the future. Determine how you're going to handle this. Look at your decision maker model, whichever one you're using. If the decision is to accept a gift, that hurts. But anyway, document the offer and the justification why you're accepting this gift. If you're going to accept it, you got to back it up to why you're receiving this gift. And then address any possible conflicts of interest. So you're documenting, and then you are addressing any conflicts or interests. Strive to accept the gift or on behalf of the entire project, TVR project or department, or for those in need in the community. Has anyone ever faced these dilemmas, these scenarios?
So when I was in SUD here at Cowlitz, we're allowed to accept things on behalf of the tribe, not for us personally. So it can stay here at the office because that's how we are as Native people, right?
Yes, exactly.
And so we can do that. But putting that in the note, I didn't think about that. Like, cause you know, I just go to my day-to-day. So I'm going to start adding that. That's awesome.
Yes.
I feel like that's an important detail that I should have already been doing, but you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. You can't be hard on yourself. Can't be hard on yourself. But we know. And so, yes, it's our culture to do these things, to accept, not to offend anyone, but documentation if you're going to accept and you haven't voiced that at the beginning. And again, if you are accepting those gifts, make sure the person says to you I'm going to bring you something because I appreciate you. Explain to them and say, if you want to, if that's your choice, then bring it for the entire agency, not just me, not my name.
Okay, Nancy, how about like one of your participants did self-employment and as a staff, they brought in stuff to sell. Would that be overstepping your boundary, buying something from them? From your participant?
Any feedback on what Letty's asking? I'm gonna throw it out to the audience.
Well, if you are buying, then you're a customer to that individual, I think.
Would that be unethical to buy stuff from your own participant?
Are you doing it in the office? Are you doing it in public? Or are you doing it behind closed doors? Or how are you doing this?
Well, there's a point where a customer, there was a participant that was on the program, and during the time that he was on the program, he would bring stuff into the office to sell to the staff. And I thought that was unethical because that was the program had bought him supplies and stuff like that. But I didn't buy anything, but the other staff did.
Okay, I'm gonna refer you back to the decision-making model. And as an office, you guys need to come up with whatever rules and regs you have for that, but this is what we're giving you today. If the person's in your office and you're purchasing from this person, is that his job? I mean, there's a lot of questions here.
Adrian says that if it's fry bread, then to definitely fry it.
Yeah, I want my fry bread. Okay. All right. So I'm going again, Letty, that's something for your TVR office to understand and know. Yes, it's our culture to accept gifts. If not, we're gonna offend a lot of people, but you have to know how to do this without offending. Okay?
Yes, Philip also said that in the Native culture, if they refuse a gift, it would offend the giver.
Exactly.
Can I say something here? This
Sure,
is
go ahead, Annette. Okay.
So if this person come into the office and is selling this stuff, I mean, I would look at it in a sense that it's not being bartered. It's selling at whatever the, I guess, cost or price that it is set at. You know, it's not discounted, you know, and there is no pressure for the person to come in and you know, bring this particular product or sell to the staff. I would think it would be okay, because it's not just one person involved, is the whole entire staff, and it's being sold at whatever it's priced at, not being discounted because, you know, he knows them or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's the one that is coming in. They didn't ask him to come in. He's the one that you know, coming in to market his product. I thought it would be okay, but that's how I look at it.
Yeah.
Because
So,
they have an option to purchase.
Keith said that it's a matter of justification and documentation, and then what the cultural norms are. Those are all things to consider. Bettina said that personal funds used is all right. If it's TVR funds used to purchase, that might be another story. Lori said, I think there are some variables to consider. If you purchased it at a market or the place of business, that would be different. The other thing to consider would be that would set up the expectation for you to purchase just one. I think that's what you mean, Lori. Our agency considers some gifts to be of nominal value and allowed to be accepted, such as a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Jamie said, I think the question was, is it acceptable for consumers to sell at the VR office? I think that's kind of what the question was.
That's kind of what the question is, Jamie. Yes.
Yeah.
And again, I'd say look at you. Is in each individual office maybe is different, and what they're going to accept and not accept. Again, look at the documentation, or not look at, but document, and then go from there. If it's purchasing, if it's gift giving, they're two different things. Purchasing and gift giving are two different things. Okay, and we must look at it like that. Again, I'm going to put it back onto your own tribal community, on your own tribal TVR, because you have to decide if this is an ongoing thing. You know how we have in our offices no solicitation? Are we doing, and it might not be in your office, but no solicitation means no solicitation. So we look at that. If the person wants to do a pre-order on the phone and it gets all these orders up, that's another deal thing. I mean, you have to look at it to what your setting is. Okay, you don't want to offend anyone, but you have to look at it to what your office is, personal office is, what your roles and responsibilities are, excuse me, not that, but what your ethical codes are. That's what I'm talking about, and how you're going to handle that through the decision making. The decisions on each office.
Well, and I also think it's a personal decision. If the office says it's okay, but it doesn't feel right to you, then. Right,
exactly. Thank you, Laura. That's a good point too. So I hope we've enlightened something, but it not cleared up, because we can't say that for every office. We cannot say that for every office. That's how
this is Lee. Perhaps there are some tribal policies out there that does address no solicitation on the tribal complex. I have worked with different tribes here in Arizona, and how I have seen it handled where the tribal vendors are allowed to set up outside the tribal offices, where they're not entering the premises of the tribal facilities. And that seems to be the best policy, where tribal employees, like during lunch break, can go outside and purchase food items or arts and crafts. So I think that's a setup to consider.
Thank you.
Keith asks, is there an expectation placed on the gift in relation to the services being received through the program? So that's about the gifts, whether, you know, related to this slide here. And Jamie said that the chief feels that there's a difference between if it's in the office or if it's, in an open setting, kind of like what Lee was talking about, set up outside somewhere or something like
Yeah.
that. Anita said that it's all clear as mud. Keith said it's imperative that each program addresses these things in their individual policies, and that he likes the way that Lee framed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and then JV said, in your opinion, if there's ever a question, if you question yourself, then her immediate response is don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for your comments.
Thanks. Yes,
Questions?
thank you. Thank you. Something to look at and to become aware of and to figure out how we're going to handle these things. That's what I have to say. All right. Again, as stated before, everybody has each individual community or each individual TVR office has their own way of doing things, and it has to do with how we're going to accept and not offend, or document and not offend. Okay, so maybe it's clear as mud, but you have to go back to your office and figure out what you're going to do with this decision making. All right, with these gifts. All right, let's move on. Oh, here we are. We're moving on right to questions and answers. I think we're done with the PowerPoint. We've completed it. If there are any questions, we can answer, hopefully. And well, I just saw what I was going to talk about next, but we'll look at questions first. Once those of you who have to scoot out right now or have in the past or previously, make sure that you complete the survey. It's available in your chat, I believe. And on the PowerPoint, which you'll receive, it'll be on the website, AIVRTTAC website.